Gary.
Man, we're like clockwork here. Look at that. Look at that. You know, we're done with one next. Here's Mr. Mitch Parker coming up next. Mitch, thank you for being here right on time, buddy.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, so Salma, this is Mitch. He's the CISO at Indiana University Health.
Yeah.
And,
Mitch,
and
how are you? How are you today?
Doing very well. Let me go close my closet door here so it doesn't look crazy.
so that's funny. There you go. Nice background.
We're gonna introduce Mitch Parker. Mitch. Mitch is the CISO of IU Health. He has done a significant amount of work in researching the effects of cloud and distributed computing network-based threats, compliance and privacy on security requirements on connected health devices. Mitch works collaboratively with a number of EMR infrastructure and biomedical equipment vendors to improve their security postures and provide a better quality of service. He currently resides in Carmel, Indiana, with his wife, 2 children, and 2 cats.
2 cats.
And 2 cats. So, Mitch, welcome to Tactical Edge.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mitch, how does it feel like being introduced, presented by a professional TV presenter from Colombia? Because Salma is a presenter in Colombian TV. So there you are. Now you can put that in your bio.
Absolutely. That's pretty awesome. That's great. Thank you so much.
So Mitch, really quick, we have another 4 minutes before the top of the hour. The last week you were about black hat, giving a presentation, and then you were in a panel at DEF CON.
Yes.
How was that? The panel at DEF CON looked very, very interesting. It had to do with security on medical devices.
Yes. So we put that together. Rob Suarez from BD and I came up with the idea last year at last year's DEF CON.
Okay.
Because we wanted to make sure people knew that instead of hearing doom and gloom that vendors and HDOs like IU Health don't talk, we wanted to show, yes, we're talking, yes, we're working together, and here's how. And more importantly, how can you be involved to be able to help out to further improve the situation? Because COVID proved this year that we have to work together, and the old adage of having people like boys on one side, girls on one side, like a middle school dance, that doesn't exactly work that well anymore, and it doesn't serve the needs of our patients.
Okay. How do you see the, and I know this is off topic, but how do you see the security in the medical devices? Is it improving? Because I know a few years ago, just 2-3 years ago, that was all the talk, right? IoT and all the stuff.
We're all working together, and it is significantly improving. And I don't think we talk enough about all the work we do to make sure that it continues to improve.
Okay. On a personal level, as I just told Jerry, a cat just adopted us, so now we have 2 cats. You are the proud owner of 2 cats. What should I be expecting in the future?
It depends on whether the cats are friends or not.
Okay, so that's the whole thing. We're trying to introduce them little by little and see how they get along. So hopefully they'll be okay. But let's assume the best. Let's assume that they're friends.
Yeah, so my 2 are best of friends, and they're inseparable.
Oh, nice, nice. All righty, and what are their names, really quick?
That would be Mano and Marianne.
Anyway, okay. Is this what you use for your password? So am I doing some type of like OSINT on you, like?
No, I keep the cats out of the passwords.
That's fantastic. All right, Mitch. So what's your presentation today all about?
My presentation is about taking the suck out of supplier risk management and a story about our ongoing process and how we've done so, and how we continue to evolve the process. Because again, this is something that had to completely change and evolve with the advent of the cloud. And so we've talked about how we've evolved it from being a process that was focused on on-premises applications, the one that focuses more on the cloud, software as a service, and being able to make sure that we can continually assure good quality of service.
So Mitch, welcome to Tactical Edge. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much.
Let me make you co-host.
Get that slideshow up and running as soon as possible. So
Yeah, take your time.
no problem. I got it right here. And I'm going to share it. And
we see it.
okay, so now it's going to go to slideshow and play from start. So do y'all see it now?
Yep, beautiful. Thanks, Mitch.
Very welcome. Let me know when I can go.
Go ahead.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about how to take the suck out of supplier risk management, a story about how we did it and more importantly, continue to do it. So today's story is not going to be a story that is going to have all good parts. It's not going to be a story about how we faced tons of adversity and had tons of success. It's a story about an organization that grew a lot, continues to grow, and continues to learn. And I want everyone to keep that in mind. We're not trying to say we're perfect. We're not trying to say we're better than anyone else. We're trying to say that we do a lot of work to try and evolve and how we improve security rather than just saying we're the greatest. We've made errors. We've had faults. We're going to talk about them. But more importantly, we're going to talk about how we recovered. So let's start off. Why are we here? We're a healthcare provider. We're a large one. We have over 1,300 vendors. And because of that, we have a large risk of scale. And we needed to be able to scale and produce means by which we could demonstrate to our senior leadership that we had good requirements, that we're able to evaluate our vendors accurately for risks, and be credible in how we present that we had addressed these risks to our stakeholders. So we have to be able to demonstrate to everyone that we're effectively de-risking the organization, is how one of our senior leaders puts it. So that's why we're here. And ultimately, our end goal is to make sure that the patients of our organization get the best quality care. And we need to be able to procure products and services to be able to facilitate that. So current status of what we've seen in the industry is that a lot of the third-party vendor risk solutions don't present the requirements for a good risk-based approach that's needed to address the actual intent of regulations. There's a lot out there that talks about regulations, but not the intent of what they really mean. So what this comes down to is you have these scores based upon controls that we have no insight into, and reported data breaches for vendors. They don't provide evidence of risk mitigation, they just a score. And in healthcare, under the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, better known as HIPAA, the processes used by them revolve around what's called a business associate agreement, which is required by federal law. And you have to use that to address your security terms and concerns. Has to be in the terms and conditions of your contracts. And a lot of the BAAs don't have detailed commitments to controls and a lot of broad statements. So I'll give you an example. I'll see sections in contracts that say, we will conform and be compliant with everything in the HIPAA security rule. I came from defense contracting. I used to deal with companies that had 50, 100 billion, $200 billion annual revenue that could not comply with every DoD regulation. You cannot put in a legal contract that a company with 1/10 the revenue of Lockheed is going to conform to everything that DoD says. For healthcare, no one's going to be ever fully compliant with HIPAA. It's a matter of a risk-based approach and how much risk are you willing to accept and how much risk is tolerable by your organization. No one will ever meet 100% of all security controls. And this is what we find. A lot of people deal in absolutes too much in security, and doesn't meet the goals of what you need. So our challenge, which is the same faced by many organizations, is an insurmountable workload in managing our supplier risk. So we were overloading the following groups, which were our attorneys, our third-party risk team, several outside firms we were brought in, and most importantly, our vendors. So yes, analyze all the things. So what did we do? We spent 1.5 years taking a look at this problem and finding out where the issues actually were. We interviewed a lot of people. We talked to fellow practitioners, a lot of vendors, a lot of our CISOs, both vendor and peer, and a number of our peer institutions. And we did a lot of grunt work. We developed security standards to address emerging technologies, and we went out and talked to a lot of people about those as well. And we examined a lot of the upcoming standards, talk about PCI DSS 4.0 for credit card processing, and sent recommendations and shared our ideas with vendors as well. So PCI was one example, 21st Century Cures Act final rule was another. If there was legislation coming out, we commented, and we kept our Senior Vice President of Government Affairs very, very busy. So with all that, this is our view of current third-party risk processes and what we're seeing out there. And I think Beavis and Butthead sum it up quite well without the Grim Reaper music video playing in the background. So what are our goals today? We're going to walk you through what we did, the good, the bad, and the really, really ugly, and talk about what our challenges were. We're going to talk about the current situation, look at its impact, talk about our prior attempts and failures, discuss what we did, and then talk about the results of what we achieved, with an eye towards what we're doing towards the future. This is what we hope not to do. I love the 1980s. I'm a child of the 1980s and can also tell you it is also an era of many, many very bad record covers that a lot of people regret. Much like people regret what they were going to regret what they post on social media. Now in 30 years, these bands regret what is now in the dollar bin of most classic record stores now. We hope not to suck. So here's our problem statement. There's too many vendors in the third-party risk space. And there's a lot of requirements based on the products and services that you need to acquire. And there's a lot of risks that you need to manage, starting with the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of personal data, the CIA, as we call it, of PHI, the integrity and availability of equipment and services that deliver care, which with COVID has gone up significantly. And I should have put CIA in there, honestly, with a slide. And the CIA of services that run your operations. Again, with COVID, this has gone off the charts with its importance. And now we're dealing with the CIA of devices implanted in the people's bodies. And again, with the increase in virtualization that we're seeing, this is going to be more commonplace. And right now, we have the complexity of trying to manage all these requirements and the burden that it had on our organization. Because again, we're supposed to take a look at all this work, and it added on significant amounts. And we had to make some changes because of it. So we take a look at the industry, take a look at healthcare in particular. There's thousands of organizations, other organizations like us, and every single one of them is unique. It's like when you ran the game NetHack 1,000 times, you come up with 1,000 different dungeons, but they all had the same objective in the end. And what we found is a lot of eerily similar requirements among all these organizations. And what we also found in this inconsistency is a lot of confusion on what's enough. What do people need to do? Because what one organization says that you have to do, another organization says you don't have to do. So a lot of our vendors we found were incredibly confused. And a lot of them were very exhausted. So one of the people I worked with a little bit was Michael McNeil, formerly of Philips Healthcare, now of McKesson, who gave me a lot of great advice in developing what we did. So onward. Big challenge we also found, and I found this from dealing with a couple of our larger vendors, was they spend a lot of time answering checklists and completing audits. This sucks time and resources out of securing their operation and allowing them to develop more secure products. So in the attempts of trying to demonstrate that these groups and vendors are secure in delivering services and medical devices to organizations, what ends up happening is they end up having to divert resources from actual product development and product security to answer the questions of 1,000 different institutions asking the same thing. So as a large academic health center, we have the same issue every time we have phase 3 and phase 4 clinical trial security attestations and our what we call the 21 CFR Part 11 health. We feel their pain. And what ends up happening is you end up delaying services from getting into the hospital. You're delaying clinical trials. Security actually gets worse at the providers we just talked about. And what ends up happening is people just believe secure is secure, and there's no real validation or integration into the hospital risk management program because you end up taking so long that by the time you finish, it's already live. This is something we want to avoid. So what's the impact? What are we dealing with? Right now, 60 days to review vendor submissions due to document review. Large enterprise contracts get delayed due to vendor review, and outside counsel had to get hired to support the in-house teams, which leads to frustration. Security reviews, thou have truly vexed me. So let's talk about some of our failures. So take a look at the proprietary third-party risk solutions that a number of us get spammed about on LinkedIn on a daily basis. We don't get insight into their scoring base. We don't get a view into their metrics because they claim their metrics are proprietary. And we have been told that some are based on outside network scans and also data breaches that the third parties have encountered. So what's wrong with this? Why is this bad? Because I don't have insight into actual practices. And a lot of the cloud providers, especially the ones I deal with, they do a great job blocking actual network scans and probing attempts. And no sane CISO that I know would allow a third party to scan their network without a valid business reason, a good NDA, and the approval of the general counsel. This goes well past CIO. This goes to general counsel. This goes to CEO. So in a rough translation, no. And so Michael Scott sums it up for me perfectly. So I let you scan the network for free and sell the results? Are you kidding me? It's not going to happen. No one I know would ever let that happen. And also, what they talk about, they're not based upon established control sets or standards. See, when I talk to senior leadership and I have to talk about what standards does something meet, understand I'm dealing with people that have advanced degrees in accounting, advanced degrees in business, PhDs, lawyers. These are not stupid people. So I have to get up there, and if I don't associate it with the Financial Accounting Standards Board, the Federal Financial Institutions Examinations Council, ISO, UL, IEEE, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, High Trust, HIPAA, or PCI, I'm going to get looked at as if, hey, Mitch, what the hell are you doing to me? Why aren't you using what the established standards are? So you're telling me you're going to do all this. So I think Willy Wonka here, played by the best one of all, Gene Wilder, explains it the best. So you expect me to take data I can't explain to the C-suite? Please explain to me how I can do that and actually still have a job. Because again, people want to see an established scoring system out there, and they want to see you based on standards, not based on some proprietary metric that somebody charges you a lot of money for that has no meaning. Because after you've had a CFO dissect everything you say, you are not going to sit there and go, well, it's proprietary. You're going to base it on standards they can look up, because you have to be credible. And being proprietary means you're not credible. So what else causes issues? The internet presence companies have, it can be somewhere else other than their network. And with the move to the cloud, your public presence can be entirely on AWS or Azure and not on the same network that the PCs sit on. Doesn't talk about connectivity to and from your partner networks, and doesn't provide answers as to the risk classification of an organization, which is a big issue. So adding on to this, we can't make actual risk-based determinations because someone says so. And a lot of the audits that we undergo on IT, they're actually done by CPA firms. So the amount of documents that I get that says this audit has been undertaken according to AICPA standards means that I'm going to have accountants looking at my stuff, which means that I have to have controls they can look at that meet accounting standards. So if I were to hand them a score and say, yeah, I paid money and someone gave me the score, that's a finding. I don't care what happens, and I don't care about the next probably 20 messages I'm going to get on LinkedIn that tell me that people have been audited. I give this to people that audit me. That's going to come back as a finding because I'm not going to explain to them the how. And if it's completely subjective, it doesn't give insight into how it was deduced. That's a problem. That is a big problem. So we had, when I first started at IU Health, we had a third-party consultant we were spending $24,000 plus a month on. We were literally bringing him in from Missouri every month. Nothing against him. He's a great guy. I happen to like him very much. However, that's an insane amount of money. So we took the money and we hired several people with that could actually do work and do standard work. And that gave us better results that paid off later. Well, it was great. We had someone doing third-party risk. When they cost as much as 5 people with benefits, that's something you got to change. So, well, when I also started here, we had a BAA that vendors outright refused to sign because it talked about clean desks. It talked about things that were from the 1980s. When your equipment and your software is in the cloud, what good is a clean desk when there's no desk? So a lot of it focused on what I like to call security theater, no focus on having actual security in the first place. So we went to 2017. That was the first one that actually addressed security. And this added a lot of time because we had actually put real security requirements in, and we were getting a lot of red lines from our vendors, very specifically in 4 different areas: auditing and logging, PCI compliance, because, well, we put PCI in every contract, data portability, and distributed systems. So we had to focus on these areas because this is where the big contracts were, and we wanted to make sure that we were covered. However, we had them in every contract, which, as you can tell, didn't really address the problem of a long time wait, as you can see by the nice little meme I put on this slide. So this leads us to our current day. So we kept our base business associate agreement, and we broke down our security addendums into nice little sections to better reflect our requirements, and talked about everything that you needed comfort on. And we also broke them out to reduce the redlining and legal review because lawyers cost a lot of money. And also, like us, they are completely overloaded. And we wanted to also identify where the value isn't being gotten or is being misinterpreted based upon current processes. And we wanted to give requirements for what we need. And with a goal of reducing the redlining and reducing the reviewing time. Again, I'm going to go a little bit off slide here. We had a lot of work we were doing. And the security requirements that we had gone up significantly. So a little corollary, we deal a lot with cyber insurance companies. We deal a lot with third parties. Security requirements over the past 5 years, a lot of it due to ransomware, have gone through the roof. So we had to adapt and make changes because ransomware completely changed how we did business. Because instead of security being something that you thought of to check a box to say, yeah, I did this, OCR, please don't find me tons of money, it now comes down to, are we really protected? Are we really doing all the work that we need to do? Because we don't want this to give us ransomware. And that is the top thought on everyone's mind. So if there's been any benefit to this pandemic before COVID that we call ransomware, it's been that it's actually made security front and center for a number of different organizations. And that's something that we keep in mind. it's no longer something you just hold a tabletop on. You have to be actively thinking continually with every process that you have about how you can better improve your organization and guard against the root factors that lead to a ransomware infestation, period. So we did something else very, very different. We went to industry. We got input and reconciled common approaches. I will tell you, I approached probably 15 to 20 different companies talking about what we were doing. Michael McNeil was one person we approached, and I would say we approached 20 other people like him in the industry. Rob Suarez from BD was another. And we talked about what we were doing. We even gave HIMSS presentations on a lot of the work we were doing. I gave a HIMSS 19 presentation on third-party risk and vendor management. Got input from our vendors that were there, very specifically B. Braun and Phillips. We gave presentations on blockchain security, did some work with Consensus Health, did some work with a number of other organizations, and gathered information from the industry to include in what we were doing. And we gave a lot of presentations at HackerCons like Circle City Con, Purdue Sirius, and IUPUI's informatics program to gather information. Because the other thing that we found that was pretty cool, very specifically in my adjunct position at IUPUI, is a lot of people were sending their employees to the informatics program there. So you give a presentation on about what you're doing for risk management, and you have people from all over the state of Indiana telling you their experience and what they're going through and what their challenges are. That's gold. And you're going to take that and you're going to integrate it. Because when you hear about people's experience and you hear about people's needs, that's always what's most important. We want to make sure we got experience, we captured their experience, we captured their needs. Because again, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm secure, but it's another thing to actually present something completely realistic that meets both your needs and your suppliers. And also, we did some pretty extensive internal reviews to get organization buy-in. So we have a governor's committee that meets once a month that we talk to. We talk to our lawyers. There's a lot of them. And we talk to people across the organization. I will say for each requirement document that I put together, I had at least 20 or 30 people look at them. And if somebody had something to say, I didn't ignore it. I looked at them, I looked at their point of view, and I included it. And also, we talked PCI with our major vendors as well, because PCI is one of those areas where a lot of people think they know what they're talking about. However, you've got to really talk to the experts, and you really have to understand your environment to do PCI very, very well. We're thankful we have a very good PCI manager at our organization, and we have a very good QSA. However, getting those requirements on paper and also understanding what PCI really means is another story. And it requires a little bit of a level up compared to what people just do when saying, I want you to comply with PCI. There's a lot more to it. And so we pushed it out. We went to HISAC. We went to a number of other venues. We published everything on the internet. What better way to get criticism than to put it up on the internet? I'm actually very thankful right now we don't have a comments section on ours, not because I don't like comments, but because of the large amount of trolls that we've been seeing lately. And we publicized it. Why? Because we want people to criticize us. I'm not here to say we're good, we're perfect, because we're not. And if there's something we want to change, we'll change. Something we need to change, we will change it. Because ultimately our goal is we will provide better quality and more secure services and products to help provide the very best care for our patients. And whatever we can do to improve the mission, we will do. And I don't have that ego about gold plating the requirements. Someone tells me something's messed up, we'll change it. So this is what we did. Our root document, we did a lot of work on this one, actually included a lot of great work in here. I'll tell you, big shout out to Ian Coldwater and all the work they do on Kubernetes, because incredible, incredible, incredible. We included it in our standard information security requirements and demonstration of compliance. Did a lot of great work on third-party information security practices, due diligence. We got a lot of great cooperation from the industry on our medical device security and responsible vulnerability disclosure requirements. Same thing goes for our wireless, cellular, RTLS, RFID, and near-field communications requirements, and also our PCI DSS requirements. And international data usage, I think of the past year has proven anything to every organization out there, it's that we are truly a global community. And that even though we might be separated by the fact that travel is now restricted because of COVID, we are truly global. And we need to make sure that our security standards work globally. So that was our goal there. And also verification and validation using distributed computing, because let's be very clear, although a lot of people mock blockchain, it's out there, it's being used, major companies are using it. And I don't think SAP and Oracle are small companies, and I don't think IBM's small either. So keep that in mind, which is why we have the requirements we do. Same thing goes for smart contracts. Again, when I hear of companies like those implementing them, it means that it's only a matter of time before you see them in your organization. So what did this really get us? We were able to reduce our time to evaluate products significantly. We have the metrics to prove it. Though I'm not going to show you what goes to our leadership, I can tell you these numbers are pretty accurate. We also got other health systems and vendors to adopt what we were doing. We got their buy-in. And more importantly, we got better two-way security communication. So instead of us going, no, 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 it was more, hey, remember what we talked about last year? And we talked about all this great stuff you're doing? Well, we put it all in our contracts. And here's where we put it. So can you help us out here? And this actually helped us out with a major multi-million-dollar contract negotiation, because we co-developed the requirements with them, and therefore it made negotiating the security part a lot easier, which leads to less time negotiating contracts. Because contract negotiation, it's not fun. If you think it's fun, you're probably not a fun person. And it's can be very stressful. So whatever you can do to cut that down actually helps keep people happy, keeps people more engaged. So the unwritten fifth bullet point I had here was increased employee engagement, because you don't have drudge work, you're not dealing with people having bad days, and you're not giving people bad days because of your crazy security requirements. So yes, increased engagement was very high on this list. So what else did this get us? This is more the future, what we're talking about right here. We found some gaps, very specifically with Internet of Things and Internet of Medical Things architecture and security standards. What we were finding, and we talked to some people about this, was that there's no real security standard for it like there is for your ERP system or your accounting system. There are no real AICPA level standards for those. So we got to meet some people because of HIMSS presentations, and they introduced me to Florence Hudson, who's doing some incredible, incredible work. And we were part of a group that helped form IEEE/ULP 2933, Clinical IoT Data and Device Interoperability with TIPS Working Group. And we're actually openly collaborating with a lot of members of our vendor ecosystem to develop this new standard. So in other words, instead of us sitting here working with only other providers, we've got some people from higher ed, maybe one or two providers, but a lot of people from the vendor ecosystem working on getting this done. Why? Because it's in everyone's best interest to put together good standards so that you could have the same standards for your ERP system that you do for IoT. That way it's a lot easier to say something secure or not, rather than having a bunch of separate standards out there and more confusion. It's better to have less confusion. And we want to have that good base control set and standards by which we evaluate these. And right now, with the rise in telemedicine, outpatient visits, and remote monitoring caused by COVID, it's time. We've needed this for years. And now that we're in a major paradigm shift in healthcare, because everything's shifting from the hospital and enclaves you can protect to the home, which you can't protect as easily, we have to change and adapt what we're doing and do it for the better. So everything we do is with an eye towards the future and with an eye towards the mission of our organization, which is, again, to provide the very best care to the citizens of the state of Indiana and beyond. And I always tell my team, if you can't explain it in 30 seconds and tie it back to the mission and values, why are you doing it? Very simple reason why we're doing this. Everything we do is around providing the very best care. This helps us provide the very best care to these people, and it's very important that we do so. So I want to give some very special thanks to several people that significantly helped out with this presentation. I know it's a little bit shorter than usual, but we want to make sure that we give people everything they need. So Taylor Lehman, I've been working with since he was a consultant at PwC, provided a lot of input, as did Tim Wainwright, another PwC alumni who's done very, very well for himself. And of course, nothing can be said. I can't say enough about the 3 attorneys I work with on a daily basis at IU Health that provided significant input in Erica, Kristen, and Michelle. I cannot say enough about how much input they provided in helping make this reality. So also want to provide you some more information because, again, like every presentation, yeah, nothing's perfect, nothing's great, but we continue to do a lot of work. So you want to do some more work with P2933. Here's the link to the P2933 homepage. And here's a link to our vendor relations site. But again, everything we do here, this is not a story of perfection. This is not a story to say, hey, we're here to look great. This is a story of we're like everybody else. We have the same problems you do. This is how we work through a lot of our issues. And more importantly, this is what we're doing to work towards the future, to provide a better future for everyone else and to actually improve security. And because one thing to talk about vulnerabilities and talk about what you discovered, we care more about the fact that vulnerabilities are always going to exist. The very nature of computing architectures dictates vulnerabilities will always exist. However, our goal is to make sure that we do something about them and have good processes in place to address them. And to do so, you need to have that good base set. You need to have that good architecture. You have those good standards you can build upon it. That's what we're trying to build here. Instead of talking about security as something that people are scared of and intimidated of, we want to empower people to do more, help themselves and help their organizations, and be able to address and meet their needs as part of the line of business, not just something they do. So with that, I want to thank you all very, very much. You can follow me on Twitter, and Elvis thanks you too. So I can open up any questions, any concerns. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, Mitch, fantastic. Yeah, I have a question here. So you have successfully created a, I will say, a secured ecosystem with third-party vendors, right? I mean, is that one of the goals that you wanted to do?
Absolutely, yes. We're nothing without an ecosystem, and if you're operating on your own, you're going to continue to have the same problems.
Absolutely. You mentioned it was focused on the medical aspect, on the medical industry, and you put the link out there for to download the document, the program. Is that industry agnostic? Can other industry take it and modify it easily, or
yes,
or it's just for health?
You can take a lot of the work we did for PCI. You can take our PCI work and take it. You can take a lot of our work and take it. And let me put it to you this way: the people that we researched for developing these standards didn't all work in healthcare.
Yeah. Okay, so you did a lot of the legwork, and you say it took you 1.5 years?
Yes.
And I'm assuming it's a work in progress. I mean, it's never like, we're complete.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I can tell you one of the big things that happened, and President Trump was supposed to announce this at HIMSS, but HIMSS got canceled, was the 21st Century Cures Act final rule, which allows patients to get access to their medical records using application programming interfaces from applications that we don't control.
Oof.
So that's a major security change. And we did a lot of work with the Cures Act in mind. However, I can tell you, we have further changes that have not gone up on the website yet that we had to make because of the Cures Act. We had changes we had to make because of the changes in international relations that we had to put in there because of the various acts that the government has put out about vendors we can and cannot use. So
Exactly.
there's a lot, it continues to evolve. It will always evolve. I'm just trying to say we're not perfect, but this is what we've done to help build that ecosystem and move things forward.
And one of your PKIs there that shows that successful is the time, the reduction in time from 90 days to 30 days, which is huge to get a new vendor approved into your, as your approved vendor for your projects or whatever it is.
Yes, the other challenges right now because of COVID, people want it instead of being 30 days, they want it to be 30 minutes.
Well, no, we're far away from that in any situation. Here's a question. How do you, and this is a good question, how do you handle potential vendors that will not complete the risk assessment?
We have a call with them. We discuss with them what our needs are, why we need to do things, and what we can do to work with them. Because a lot of third-party work we did was actually to get people off of using questionnaires and to get them more on industry standards. So, for example, you come to me and say, I've got completed ISO certification that's current, I have current high trust certification, or I have a current PCI DSS attestation of compliance. We like to call it the fast pass.
Okay, so if you have that, you already met some of the requirements, basic requirements. If you don't have them, go ahead and get them done.
Absolutely, and that was actually the major contributing factor to us cutting down the evaluation time is we cut out the questionnaires. I mean, to give you an example, the new MDS2 form that's used for medical devices, we put it out there that if you give us the 2019 revision of it, which actually has questions that address risk analysis, we will accept that instead of a questionnaire. And I will tell you, I had an 8-figure contract come across with those 2019 MDS2 forms, and people were very happy when those forms came across and a bunch of devices got approved because they had the forms. It's like, yeah, here you go. We took a look at it. It was a standard format, cut down our time to take a look at it. We were able to address customer needs and get it done very quickly.
It seems to me, though, that in order to set this type of program in place, you have to be at a high level maturity, right, in your cybersecurity operations?
I would actually say not really. I would say it's about making sure you have good processes in place.
Okay.
Because you will never, if you base things upon that 0 to 5 score of cybersecurity maturity, you will end up never doing anything. You will end up saying
you're in the cycle.
And you're going to put off doing it until you're more mature. You're never going to be mature if you do that. You've got to basically sit there. Like I said, a number of years ago at a previous employer, looked at a bunch of people in a room. I said, we're doing this. I don't care how mature you think you are or how immature we are. We're burning the ships. We're starting. We're doing this. And you have to draw that line in the sand and say, we're doing this.
Okay. So what was the driver to do this for you? I mean, again, you mentioned at the beginning, but it's good to understand again. What were the drivers, the main driver, the main pain points?
We had to make sure that anything we're putting out there that is being used to provide the very best care to patients has to not contribute to risk, is what it comes down to. We don't want to add risk. We don't want people worrying about the security of a product. People have enough to worry about, especially these days. I don't want information security to be on the minds of anybody. I want people to be more worried about their current situation or their lives. I don't want security to be a stressor on people that have enough to deal with, is what it comes down. That's our main thing.
So basically, right now with this program in place, you have made sure that cybersecurity department, I just call it department or program, it's part of the business and not something that it's seen outside the business as an add-on.
I will tell you, my greatest strength at this organization has been my customers. I always tell everyone in the organization, we are nothing without our customers.
Absolutely.
Because the customers are the ones that tell us what's going on more than anyone else. They can either be your greatest friend or your greatest enemy. We love our customers. We are nothing without them. They are our friends. Because the second I don't treat them as my friends, then we don't get information, we're not in the loop, and ultimately we're not meeting the mission of the organization, which leads to the question of why are we here?
Absolutely. Well, Mitch.
So much.
Oh, Selma is frozen. There you go.
Yeah.
Selma also has the children at home and they're downloading streaming movies right now. Well, Mitch, really, thank you very much. This was very interesting, very interesting. I'm going to make sure that I go ahead and download and read that because third-party vendors is something that affects everyone. I mean, it's no one is excluded from third-party vendors, and I'm a third-party vendor, so I need to take a look at that and understand it. So, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and have yourself a great day. Thank you both so much.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, Selma. So
we finished for today. It's for Wednesday.
What do we call it? Strategic Wednesday was today. That's what Andy Ellis wanted to call it this morning. So it was a fascinating event. I mean, we had Andy Ellis in the morning. Then we had BT, Brandon T, Jerry Bell, and then we finished with Mitch Parker, and it was fantastic. Again, thank you, TiVo Networks, SailPoint, Exabeam, and CyberArk for sponsoring this event. Tomorrow we have another fantastic day. We're gonna call it what? Terrific Thursday.
That sounds really good.
Let's see. We have so many fantastic guests. Let me just make sure I don't miss anyone. I believe that we start tomorrow nice and early, 9 Central Time, with a really good friend of ours, Michael Ball. He joins us from Canada, and then it's from Chris Kubeka. She's out in Holland. And then in the afternoon, we have Tyrone Wilson out of, I believe he's out of DC or Baltimore. And then Ira Winkler, whom I think is also somewhere in Europe. So it's going to be multiple time zones tomorrow. So hopefully everyone will join us tomorrow. Today's videos will be available later on this evening right here on this platform. So Salma.
So don't forget to go and visit our sponsors also. They have a special material for you, different activities, and you can download the material that they have, especially for you. So don't forget to go to our sponsors area and see you tomorrow. As I told you, tomorrow, 9 a.m., connect again with Tactical Edge Virtual Summit.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.